All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're ready to get started. Thank you for coming in person. Today's a hybrid meeting, so that's why you see the Zoom behind me. And we have some people participating online. For those of you online, you should be able to see our audience, and we have a live audience here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a presentation on the the restricted residential parking permit program that's being proposed for the North Beach area. And this is our fourth meeting. We've done different community meetings and different listening sessions, really, for the different zones. So this is the fourth and final one. Then at the end of the presentation, you're going to see the public hearing information where you could participate in the city commission meeting that's occurring next week. So before I turn it over to Jose Gonzalez, our interim parking director and our transportation director, I want to recognize some of the elected officials that are on the call today. We have Mayor Stephen Minor. And then I also see we have Commissioner Tanya Bott, as well as an aide for Commissioner Kristen Rosen Gonzalez, Jacqueline Boudin. I saw the aide for Commissioner Alex Fernandez, that's Monica Mateo Salinas. And in the room today, we have Brandon Lloyd. Brandon is the aide to Commissioner David Suarez. And I think I also saw Commissioner Joe Magazine on the line. And we have Vice Mayor Laura Dominguez aide, Aaron Soriano. Thank you, Aaron. So with that, we're going to go through, the format's going to be a presentation. Then at the end, if you have any questions or comments, we have a microphone here in person. And then just queue up there, form a line. You could ask us any questions, or if you have any comments about the program, you can make it there. We're going to do 2 people in person, and then we'll do 1 person virtually via Zoom. Welcome, come join us. So I think we also have Commissioner David Suarez also in person. So with that, those are our introductions. I'm going to attempt to say this in Spanish. Para español, presentación va a ser en inglés, pero si tú tienes una pregunta en español, viene al micrófono y equipo aquí puede asistir. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jose Gonzalez, and he's going to kick us off. And then again, we're here to answer any questions you may have or listen to your comments. Jose?
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jose Gonzalez. I'm the city's transportation director, also the interim parking director. Thank you for joining us, and those that are joining us via Zoom. Thank you very much. So we're here to talk about a pilot program that we're excited to launch. We're calling it the North Beach Restricted Residential Parking Permit pilot program. So we're referring to it as RRPP. So if you hear that throughout the presentation, it's essentially the residential parking program for North Beach. It's a pilot program that we're discussing. So first and foremost, what is the purpose of an RRPP? Why do we have these in the city? Essentially to prioritize residents. When there's limited on-street parking spaces, when there's high competition, high demand and high competition for the limited supply of parking spaces, prioritizing those spaces for our residents is the right thing to do. In our city right now, there are actually 19 different residential parking zones in existence. One of them already in North Beach, it's the Altos Del Mar. It's a very small area by Altos Del Mar. And they've been generally very successful. Many of you may be familiar with them if you visit South Beach. For example, the Flamingo Park neighborhood has a residential zone that's been in existence for decades and works very well. And so along the same lines of prioritizing residents, it's really to protect the quality of life here in North Beach. No one more than you understand the challenges with finding parking sometimes when you're done with your day's work and you just have to circle the blocks so many times to find a space. And that also contributes to a lot of the traffic congestion that we see in this area. Also important to note is that there are over a dozen projects, residential development projects that are in the pipeline, that have been approved in the pipeline to get built in the next few years. Those developments will only put a greater strain on our on-street parking inventory. So it's important that we take some action now. And the last thing I'll mention, it also facilitates enforcement. Parking enforcement officers are able to enforce parking better, more effectively when there is a organized program such as a resident parking program where people have to register through their license tags. So it facilitates knowing who's legally parked and who is not. All right, so this conversation about a potential pilot program started about 7 months ago. At the City Commission, there was a referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee, which we call FERC. The item was sponsored by Commissioner Suarez here today. The discussion was had at the April 19th Finance Committee, where they supported this 12-month pilot program. We also discussed this pilot program with the Transportation and Parking Committee that the city has. They also recommended it and supported it. Then the discussion went back to the City Commission on June 26 to accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee. At that meeting on June 26, the City Commission adopted a resolution supporting the pilot program and really directing the administration to start taking the steps to initiate the pilot. But first an essential piece of those steps is the community engagement and the community feedback. So we decided to have a total of 4 meetings, one meeting in each of the affected neighborhoods to get community feedback on this. And then the next step is next Wednesday. This item is going to be discussed by our City Commission. It's actually a public hearing, and it's been noticed, and we'll give you some of those details towards the end of the presentation. But that's at the July 24th meeting is where the commission is going to take a vote after hearing from anyone who wishes to speak. It is a public hearing. They're going to determine whether to proceed with this pilot program. So a few changes have been made. As we mentioned, this is the fourth meeting. And so we've been listening to your feedback from the very first meeting. And one of the changes that we're proposing is that initially we felt that it would be good to have different zones based on your neighborhoods in North Beach. But then in hearing from the community, we understand that there may be some challenges with having too many zones. One of the drawbacks is if you live in one zone, it's maybe difficult to visit a friend or a family member or a business or a restaurant in another zone and park as a resident, because these resident permits are specific to your zone. So in careful consideration of that, we felt that then probably it would be better to just have one unified consolidated zone instead of 4 individual zones, just for ease of moving around the North Beach community. All right, so a lot of our pilot programs start with data. We like to collect data to identify the problem and then look for solutions by way of pilot projects and other solutions. So when we look at the town center neighborhood, which is what we specifically wanted to discuss with you today, but we're also open to any comments or suggestions you have in any of the other neighborhoods. When we look at the town center neighborhood, we see areas in red and several areas in red and orange as well. And those are areas where there is high utilization of the available parking, meaning, and in the red parcels, by the way, is where it's greater than 85% utilization or occupancy, if you will. When that happens, it's very difficult to find a space. Chances are you probably won't. And then what happens is a lot of people just give up or start just looking for parking anywhere that they can find. Some more challenges with parking here in the North Beach area, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with. First and foremost, enforcement. As I mentioned, having a organized residential parking permit program will facilitate enforcement for our parking enforcement officers and ultimately citing whoever should not be parked. Who shouldn't be parked? Well, we see a lot of car shares. We see a lot of commercialization of our on-street parking spaces, people with commercial vans and company, essentially companies that are parking on spots that should be for residents. A lot of competition as well on the weekends with people that want to visit the beach and are looking for free parking to do so. We have businesses in the area, and the patrons of those businesses are many times finding the most convenient parking spaces, which are in your neighborhoods next to your homes. We're finding spaces that are being used for storage as well. And one of the issues here in North Beach, as you all know, there are no parking garages in North Beach. There is one parking garage that's being proposed for as part of the 72nd Street Community Complex project. It's a project that is still years away, and so it's been very challenging. It's not for a lack of trying. It's been very challenging to find sites in North Beach that are viable for construction of new public parking garages. And even when there is a site that's found, as in other parts of the city, the construction is extremely expensive. According to the last parking garage that we built, which was the 23rd Street, or the Collins Park parking garage on 23rd Street, it comes out to about $40,000 per space to build a new garage. So even when we find a location, they're just very expensive to build and take a long time to come to fruition. So again, focusing on town center, these are the boundaries that we're proposing for this neighborhood. But again, ultimately, the idea would be one large zone covering all 4 neighborhoods. But for the town center neighborhood, it's bounded by 65th Street on the south, 71st Street on the north, Harding on the east, and Indian Creek and Bonita Drives on the west. And we are excluding all on-street parking meter spaces and parking lots, meaning those would remain and they would continue to operate as they are, except after 6 p.m., they would be available for residents to park. These are the boundaries of the Normandy Isle neighborhood. We had that meeting earlier this week. I believe it was on Monday. A lot of exclusions. You'll find a lot of several exclusions in this neighborhood, and that's because there are single-family homes that have no on-street parking. They just have swale areas, and so those areas, there's no parking on the street in those areas, so they're excluded. Biscayne Beach, these are the boundaries of that neighborhood. Next one. The North Shore neighborhood, that was our first meeting that we held Monday of last week. Next. And so this slide depicts the map of all 4 zones, basically without any boundaries, just consolidating all 4 zones. Nothing changes. The 4 neighborhoods are still there, but this would just be the one unified residential parking permit zone for North Beach. So some of the parameters that we're envisioning as part of this program, a pilot program. First, as I mentioned, it would be 12 months in duration. It would be free of charge to residents during the pilot program, no charge to purchase your residential parking permit. Visitor permits, the way it's currently working is in other residential zones in the city is that a visitor permit costs $3 and it's active for a 24-hour period, and we provide a maximum of 30 visitor passes per quarter. However, in hearing some of the feedback from the prior community meetings and in consultation with the sponsor, with Commissioner Suarez, we're looking at potentially offering these visitor passes for free as part of the pilot program, and ultimately it would be discussed on next Wednesday during the public hearing at the City Commission. We're offering up to 2 residential parking permits per household with additional beyond two, upwards of two, considered on a case-by-case basis. And one of the changes that is being considered from how the program was originally envisioned is that residents who have dedicated on-site private parking spaces would still be included and eligible under this pilot program. On-street parking spaces adjacent to city parks in the North Beach community will become residential after park closing hours. We want to be sure that our parks are maintained as places that the public, even people from other parts of the city, or can come and visit. And the accommodations to mitigate the impacts to businesses are also being considered. That was something that we heard from the very first meeting in terms of businesses and patrons of the different businesses. So we're looking to make certain accommodations to try to mitigate some of that impact. The restricted or the RRPP would be in effect from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Fridays, and then on Fridays it would start at 6 p.m. and go to 7 a.m. on Mondays, and all legal holidays would be included. Okay, so in terms of how the pilot program would work, the first 2 months would be dedicated to outreach. It would be that learning curve, if you will, for the community. So during the first 2 months, there's going to be a lot of promoting of the pilot program, a lot of education. There will be no active enforcement. No citations will be issued during those first 2 months. No towing will occur, not only during the first 2 months, but throughout all the 12 months of the pilot program. But that really is the period for the community to register, to learn about the program, to ask questions, and participate. After that, the initial 2 months, then we will start to issue citations to people who violate and park illegally. However, as I mentioned, we will not tow throughout the entire pilot program. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that during the first 2 months, although we're not issuing any citations, we are issuing written warnings, and that's important for us to keep track of who's registered, who's not, who's complying, and who's not, since this is a pilot project, a pilot program, and we need to keep track of certain key metrics to know if it's successful and to measure its effectiveness. Okay, a few more, a little more on the registration requirements. We're offering 2 different ways of registering, either in person or remotely. For in-person registrations, we're asking that you bring a completed application, which the application is available at miamibeachparking.com. Also a government-issued photo ID, proof of residency, including a utility bill. It has to be a current utility bill, and also signed lease agreements that are valid will also be accepted, and valid vehicle registrations, because that is how we are going to issue permits, is based on your vehicle tag. There's also, as I mentioned, virtual registration option, which is extremely convenient. It could be done from anywhere, including from your home. For the virtual registrations, it's essentially the same documentation that's being required, with the exception of a government issued ID. We do ask that you please not email any government issued ID for your security. If you choose to register in person, there are 2 different locations where that could be done: at the city's customer service center adjacent to City Hall, and also at the building department satellite office just a few blocks away. For that office, we do ask that you make an appointment in advance, because space is very limited inside that office, and we just don't want a lot of folks having to wait outside. A few of the safeguards that we're including as part of the pilot program is that we We're offering temporary permits. We understand that a lot of our residents may be in flux. They may be moving from somewhere. So we're issuing temporary citations for a 90-day period. Um, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. No citations. My apologies. We're offering temporary permits for a 90-day periods to allow time for residents to switch their vehicle registration. Leniency, as I mentioned, no citations the first 2 months. Then after the first 2 months, if you do receive a citation as a one-time courtesy, we are dismissing that. We understand that this is a new program and, something new for the community. For houses of worship, we are offering what we call a house of worship permit that allows congregants to park in the residential zones. And we're also considering something similar for non-for-profits, something that's going to be discussed on Wednesday, as we understand that the non-for-profit organizations may be affected as well if they are within a residential zone. So there are benefits to residents by registering and being part of a restricted residential zone. Those include discounted resident rates. It's $1 an hour at the meter, where it could be up to $4 an hour in other parts of the city. The 46th Street lot has a reduced flat rate of $6 instead of the $20 standard flat rate. And garages are also $1 an hour rather than $2 an hour. And all these, payments could be made either through the Pay by Phone app, the Park Mobile app, or at the pay stations. And I inadvertently forgot to introduce the leadership team, which I've been doing at every meeting, and I forgot today. Jackie Caicedo is our Administrative Services Manager, Alberto Ventura, our Assistant Director, and I, as I mentioned, Interim Parking Director. So we are your leadership team. Any question that you have about this program or about anything else, please feel free to contact us. Our number and our email addresses are there. And so in terms of next steps, as I mentioned, there's one more meeting, which is the public hearing. It's going to be next Wednesday, July 24th, as part of the City Commission meeting. There's going to be 4 separate agenda items, 1 per neighborhood. As you see, those are the time certains for each of the neighborhoods. They're 5 minutes apart each. That does not mean that the commission will only dedicate 5 minutes. They'll dedicate, I'm sure, as much time as is needed. But what that represents is that the item will not be heard prior to that time. And you can also participate in the public hearing via Zoom, and at the bottom of the screen is the Zoom link. And again, please stay in touch. Let us know your comments, suggestions, your feedback. These are the different resources that are available to you to get a hold of us. And so with that, thank you very much.
We're going to open it up for questions and comments. If you could line up right over here. So I made an announcement earlier. Everyone queue up over here. Yeah, so queue up right here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give everybody 2 minutes, answer your questions. Again, en español, si tiene una pregunta, por favor, viene aquí y vamos a hablar con usted. It is a hybrid meeting for those of you that may be just joining us in person and then on Zoom. I'm going to do 2 people here in person. We'll do 1 on Zoom, and that's going to be the order. All right, so, sorry, come on up.
Yeah, okay. English?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I live in Abbottown 77. I rent an apartment. The lease is under my name. The thing is that I have a company vehicle. I sent an email already to Jose.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no way I can match the address where I live with the registration. It's a company vehicle. It's in another state. The license is from South Carolina. So is there any way I can get a permit? I mean, I don't want to pay, during the weekends, or I live here. Currently, I park in front of my house. But it's a company vehicle.
Yeah, we've made that exemption before, as long as the company vehicle is not a commercial vehicle, meaning it's wrapped with commercial.
What do you mean? What is commercial?
You have signs, you have ladders,
No,
commercial.
no, nothing.
If it's a regular company vehicle, we've done those exemptions in the past. As long as you're,
It's not wrapped and it says plumbing service.
Nothing,
engineer.
nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
But
All-
it's a license from South Carolina.
that's fine.
That's fine?
All we're gonna need is something from your employer stating that that vehicle was assigned to you so that we're able to register.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. So again, it's 2 minutes per person. Gabby is helping us online today. Thank you, Gabby. What's your name?
Melissa,
Hi, Melissa.
I have a few questions.
Please, yeah.
Okay, regarding the zone, I was curious, you said you're gonna do one zone for all 4 sections. And I'm curious to know, in South Beach, how is it? Is there one zone for all of the area, or there are different zones?
No, so in South Beach, we do have different zones. I think, I was just on the website now. I know we have 25 in total. That's not South Beach only, though. That goes 41st Street all the way down to South Point Park. So all the zones, South and Mid Beach, there's about 25, right? And they're all different shapes and sizes.
Have they, okay, so why couldn't we do the same thing? My only concern, I'm in Normandy Isle, and like each area has their own like
Yeah,
situation with parking.
Yeah.
And I want, like, if we live there, we should have like our own zone. That's just.
yeah, so,
I mean, I'm a condo owner there for 24 years, and I'm so grateful for you bringing this agenda up, because it's been a problem. Like, I had to Uber to this meeting today, because otherwise I won't find
you lose
parking
your
when I get
spot,
home.
yeah.
So it's an issue. So I don't know if they're open to doing different, zones. Right.
Because right now,
We have nothing.
right, anyone can park anywhere right now,
Right.
and it's a free for all. So I think the fair thing to do for anyone who lives in North Beach, which is above 65th Street, is, if you have a friend, Normandy Island, you want to go to Biscayne Beach,
Mhm.
you should be able to do that without being restricted.
Okay.
So, the intent of this program really is to put out all bad actors,
Right.
the people who Airbnb and allow 10 people to a car, 10 cars to their establishment, or the people towing other
Right.
vehicles. And so that's the intent. Because right now it's the wild, wild west
Right.
on-site parking. And so the pilot program is the first step in really getting more data and understanding how it's going to work. And look, I'll be the first to admit, if this is a failure, I'll admit it, and we'll move on, and we'll say, hey, we tried. But one thing for sure that I've realized when I campaign door to door in North Beach, I've knocked on thousands of doors in North Beach. The number one issue is parking.
Yeah.
100%. You guys just don't have. You guys are fighting for parking spaces wherever you go. And in any other neighborhood that has residential parking, it works. It works. People are happy, and you have 0 complaints. And so, it's about time North Beach has that opportunity to have that enforcement. A lot of people, you might have questions about enforcement. Well, why don't we enforce the 48-hour rule? I'll throw you a couple curveballs.
And Commissioner, if you could use the mic, because nobody on Zoom could hear you.
Sure. One of the issues is enforcement, right? Why don't we enforce the 48-hour rule? I'll give you an easy example. Let's say you work from home, and you don't need to drive, and you have a car, and you want to leave it. That your car will be towed if there was a proactive enforcement. Right now, the enforcement is resident driven or complaint driven. So here's another issue, and this happens all the time. If you are in a dispute with your neighbor, and he's in a dispute with you, and you go out of town, and he knows you're going out of town, they'll call the parking department and say, hey, this car's been here for 48 hours, and the parking department has no idea that car is registered with the city. With this program, they're going to know that your car is registered, and so that you belong there. So there's a lot. Look, it's not perfect. Nothing's going to be perfect, but it's a starting point. And I think that the status quo right now is not an option. And I'm trying my best. And there's a lot of misinformation out there saying that I'm beholden to tow companies and developers. I didn't take a dime from developers or special interests, okay? I funded my own campaign. I did this because I actually want Miami Beach to be the best place to live. And North Beach, you guys are always left out of everything. And so I'm here to actually do something for North Beach. I don't have a dime to make out of this, okay? The people who are vehemently against this, passionately against this online, they're most likely being paid off by developers. Honestly, I mean, why would you be against this? You have over a dozen developments going up right now. Most of them are going to be short-term rentals, micro units. That's going to be over 1,000 or a couple thousand cars that are going to be competing with your spaces. And so the developers don't want this because they know that their profits are going to suffer, unfortunately, because of this. So, and look, I don't want to hijack the meeting.
No, no.
I want to let everyone speak. I'm going to be here. If you guys have more questions, I'd be more than happy to answer, okay?
Thank you, Commissioner. I know you had a few more questions, so I'm going to give you another minute. If you could just tell us all your questions, and then we'll answer them kind of in the order. But if you could use the mic, just because nobody on Zoom. And
Well-
today we're recording this, so.
Well, it was just a few more other things, but I guess you guys can tweak it as, once it becomes a thing. But I know you said private parking, so basically if you have a house, you'll be allowed to get permits also, even though you have parking in your
Yeah.
house?
Yes. Yeah.
Because right now you can't. Right now you still.
Right.
And I think, and what we could do is also, if you could share with us your questions afterwards, because there's a lot of things that through these listening sessions came up
Right.
related to the one zone, and also condominiums that had parking originally were not going to be part of the program. So those are some of the things that were added, part of really the community outreach sessions. This is our fourth meeting. So from what we've heard and what
Right.
we've seen and received, these modifications were made.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my other question would be, can you, like, let's say you go out of town for 3 weeks, you're, like now,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to keep your car in a
There-
parking
yeah.
spot more than, I think, what is it, a week or two?
Yeah, so in respect to, if 48 hours, you can't keep
Okay.
your car parked. But in respect to travel, if you're traveling, going out of town, and your car is going to be sitting for a while, there's a mechanism where you report it to the parking department. So that way, when enforcement goes by, they know, hey, this car is out of town. And there's also a time frame that you could keep your car parked in that space. So that way, we don't have people. If you're going for an extended period of time, which people do, then there's other areas where you could park.
Okay, that was it.
Great.
Thank you.
And then we'll do some more in person because I know we have a big line. Hold on, I'm gonna just yeah. Thank you. Gracias. Hey, if
My
you could
name
just
is
say your name.
Albert.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm
Albert.
on Biscayne Beach, and our great commissioner came and knocked on my door. I don't know if you remember that. But I appreciate the explanation he gave because it put to mind a little bit of my concerns. We have a difficulty with parking. I own a house that if I was to have a small gathering, there's just not enough parking in the house. So I wanted to see what kind of options are you going to give, because in previous times, somehow or other, we were able to find it. So I know you've worked very good with the boats in the bay. I appreciate that. I know that you work very good with the parking, handicap parking in South Beach as well. And I know you're doing a great job, and I know this is a pilot program that he just explained that if it doesn't work out, you're willing to cancel it. I just want to make sure that we don't, no, that we stay on focus, that we're doing the best. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Albert. And so to your point, in respect to gatherings, you have a single family home. If you're gonna, and this goes for everybody that's registered in the program. No, actually not registered in the program. Anybody in a zone will be able to have a visitor pass. And through the community outreach, when we first started these meetings, there was a discussion that those visitor passes were going to be $3. Now we're exploring for them to be free for the entire pilot program for that 1 year. It's going to be a free visitor's pass. Again, that's not anyone that's registered in the program, but anyone that lives in a zone, because there are people that have friends that drive into their neighborhood. So of course they need visitor parking for them. If you could just remind me, what's the amount of visitor passes per person?
The way it works in other residential zones in the city is that it's $3 per visitor permit, and the city issues up to 30 visitor permits per quarter. But as Kevin mentioned, one of the things that's going to be discussed at the public hearing is the potential of offering those visitor passes free of charge to residents.
No, and I appreciate that, but here you're getting, maybe you're having a little birthday party for your granddaughter or whatever, and now you gotta call and get visitors parking.
Yeah, it's all going to be
Yeah,
online.
and it's just another
Yeah.
layer that you have to put on there. And all I want is, we've really lived here for 29 years, all I want is to see Miami Beach do the right thing. Unfortunately, once things get applied, then they're very difficult to just, cut them out. But I just wanted to give you my input, and I appreciate what everything is going on, if it's gonna make it better for these people, because if I had a condo there, I would go crazy for a spot. I mean, I understand that there isn't enough to go around, and I do believe you're gonna have to entertain the thought of building a parking garage somewhere to alleviate
Yeah.
these people, It's just no way else.
Exactly. No, but thank you so much, Albert. Next, we're going to do our virtual person. We're going to do somebody online, and then you could queue. Yeah, espérate un minuto porque hay una línea. Sí, sí, ellos están en línea ahí. Marco. So, Marco, you're on Zoom. Y tenemos una línea en el internet. Yeah. Hey, Marco,
hello.
if you could
Can you
unmute
hear me?
yourself. Yeah, we could hear you.
Okay, yeah, so I don't want to be redundant, but I just have two concerns I already brought up. The first one is if you're in a condo, like where I live on Normandy Isle. So first of all, when I go to South Beach, I can't park in the Flamingo area, and I think it should be the same up here. So that's kind of being like a stepchild to the way things are in South Beach. So if you don't live on Normandy Isle and Normandy Isle zone, then you shouldn't be able to park in the zone. The other issue that I see is, well, two. One is there are condos that have parking, private parking, but the people still park on the street because it's convenient, just to quickly park on the street and then at night to move their car. So meanwhile, when you come home, you can't find a place. And so you're saying that if I live in a condo and I have two private spots, I'm going to be able to get two more and maybe more than that. So somehow you should look at matching the type of condo or the intent of the condo, let's say a studio or 1 bedroom versus a 3 bedroom, with the number of spots, so that no one's like harboring in these spots and then we have the same situation. So number one, I think the zone should be separate, just like everywhere else. Number two, I think you should go back and revisit condominiums with private parking. And then number three, while we do this, the city continues to approve developments where there's not adequate parking. Like right now in Normandy Isle, I think there's 60 more units going up. But that should equate to 120 parking spots, but it's not. So you can do this all you want, but if the city keeps approving developments where there's not required to have 2 spots per person, we're going to continue to have this problem. It's never going to go away. That's all I had to say. Not really questions, but things I'd like you to go back and look at.
Thanks so much, Marco. So to your 3 points, to the first point about the zone, now we just kind of answered that. But really, again, it's a pilot program. And originally, when we started the community outreach, we had different zones that were separated. And there was North Beach residents that were concerned, well, if I live in Normandy, I can't come over to Biscayne Beach and visit my family or my friends because now I have to do the visitor pass. So that's the idea behind the one zone, really to make it easier for North Beach residents and for you all to travel in between the zones. Again, it's a pilot program, so at the end of the program, if that's something we're looking to change, that's something that could be discussed at the commission level. Number two, in respect to condominiums that have their own parking, that was another thing that came up through the meetings and the listening sessions. Originally, condominiums that had a parking space, it was going to be at the department director's discretion. They were not going to be included in the program. And we met a lot of people that they have multiple cars And, you know, not even if they're in a condominium, if they're in a multifamily, that's not a condominium, one of those, you know, duplexes or whatnot, or townhomes. Some people live with their family and they have additional cars. So they also felt, well, you know, we should be included in the program. There's some areas of the city where you have these townhomes and there's parking nearby. So this is, again, from community outreach, an adjustment we made to try to make this easier for everyone who lives in North Beach. But again, similar to the zones, if it's something where we see there's abuse occurring, that's something the commission could go ahead and change towards the end of the program, or maybe put special parameters to ensure that it's not being abused. And then your third point was in respect to, what's that? Oh, development. So new developments are excluded from this, and I see your point. Well, some new developments have already been approved. There is no parking zones at this point. So new developments, you know, hopefully they're not doing this, but if they are banking on parking in the community, now through zones, they're not included in this program. So if you purchase a new development, you're not going to be able to receive this parking. So hopefully this sets the standard for future new developments that come into Miami Beach where, hey, you know, I'm going to have to account for the parking, or I'm going to have to look for maybe a different clientele that's carless. So that's to answer your 3 points. I'm going to go back to in person. We have 2 people in person, then 1 online.
Hi, my name is Alice. I live on Fairway Drive in a house, and I don't understand how this affects us. And my second question is, I play tennis here
Yeah.
3 times a week, and I always try to park on 73rd Street because it's free, and
Yeah.
if not, Byron or, you know, one of the others. But it's impossible on a Sunday morning when you've got 2 baseball games going on and pickleball and tennis. You know, Flamingo Park, you can park for free for 3 hours when you're playing. Here, we're charged. It's all on a meter. And I was wondering if that can be addressed. But on 73rd Street, am I going to need
Are you in a single family
decal?
home behind the
Yes.
gate?
Yes,
You're behind the gate. You're inside. You have a, okay.
Yeah.
So, so she's in a single family home. I think she's excluded from the area. So maybe you could walk us through near the park and the parking there. Because it's Fairway behind the gate.
Behind the gate, you'll still be able to register for a permit, but that permit is not valid inside the gate. So anybody that lives outside the gate can't go inside the gate to park because, again, there is no on-street parking. Those are all lanes of traffic other than the swales. Normally, where there are parks, the park hours will follow the park hours, so that residential zone will not go into effect until the park hours are over.
okay. And will we need a decal or something to park on 73rd Street when we play tennis?
Scan your license.
On 73rd Street, I believe on one side there's meters, so if there are no meters, you won't need, you're gonna need a permit, but because you're gonna be part of that zone already, you already have a permit.
How do I already have a permit?
When the resident, with this program, you'll have a permit that will be valid in that area.
Is that one of the visitor
No,
things that I only
no.
get Okay.
You'll have a permit. Because you're a resident. Yeah, you're a resident, you have a single family home, so you have to register. So when we start this, you'll get some information and then you go register with the parking department. Once you register, and this goes back to some of the questions are saying, why is it only one zone? So this is exactly why, because you're in Fairway, so you would register for the North Beach permit. Then when you come to play tennis here, if you park on 73rd Street, or if you park maybe a little more down, you'll be able to walk in and play tennis, part of the zone permit. You just have to register as soon as it starts. Not as soon as, but you know, you get the drift.
Right. Oh, there was something else. Oh, on the master plan, there was supposed to be a 500-car parking garage where the 72nd Street parking exists now. Has that been tabled, or it's not going to happen?
No, that's still proceeding. Jose could give us an update.
That is still an active project. It's in design, so it'll still be a few more years before it comes to fruition. But that parking garage is proposed to have 500 spaces, and it still needs to go through some approvals at the commission.
I mean, we're all waiting for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. If you could just state your name for us.
Hi, my name is Marion. I live on 78th Street in a building that has a condominium that has its own parking.
Okay.
So I have a question, and a neighbor of mine is in a similar situation. If the building has work done on it, like painting or paving or
Yeah.
roofing, and you need to exit the property like at 7:30 in the morning and maybe not be able to get back in until they're done for the day,
Yeah.
or maybe leave your car there for a couple of days, how would that work out? Can I get like a pass or?
Well, in this situation and with what's being proposed today, you'll qualify to receive, you could register for
Okay.
the residential parking permit. You said you have parking, so if you want to opt out and not register, you'll have the ability, I believe, you could just get a visitor's pass and put a visitor's pass on your car. So that way, when your building's under construction and you can't access your parking space, you could park on the street through the visitor's pass. Again, the pilot program is free, and you, even though you have a parking space, you could register for a permit. So I would encourage you to register for a permit and have one. So in that event, when your building is under construction, you park on the street, then you could come back into the building once it's done.
Right.
And then, yeah, that's probably your best bet.
Okay, and I have another question.
Yeah.
I go to the Normandy Park pool,
Yeah.
and I'm there like 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
And there is parking on the side street between
Yes.
71st and Normandy. It's a French name, I can never remember.
Yeah.
And sometimes all those spaces are full, and I have to park either on 71st or on Normandy. Now, I was concerned when there were 4 zones
Yeah.
that I would be, oh, I'm going from one zone to another zone. I'm going to get ticketed because I'm at the pool.
Yeah.
So now with one zone, it'll be okay?
Exactly. Yeah. So with one, and that's again, and that's one of the comments we've heard in the past. So right now with what's being proposed, it will be one zone. So even though you don't live in that zone, you could park in the pool on the street you mentioned. If it's not metered spaces, and you'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we do 2 in person. I'm gonna do 1 online, and then I think we had this gentleman, and then I'll go to you. All right. I have Fern. I can't pronounce your name, but if you could state your name for us. Starts with Fern. Hi there. Can you hear us? You just got to unmute. Okay, we're going to unmute you one more time. No, we're not hearing you. So I'm going to come back to you while you figure that out. I'll be right back. All right, screen name is iPhone. If you could state your full name for us, iPhone.
My name is Jacqueline.
Hey,
LaGrosse.
Jacqueline. Hey.
Hi. I'm a resident of Miami Beach for over 12 years, and I just had a couple of questions. I stay in the Isle of Normandy area, and I think a gentleman prior to me talking was just saying that we need to develop more parking. So along the Callias Drive, most of the property is not like private residentials, it's apartments. And I kind of feel that even though this pilot program is very positive and I like it, I don't necessarily feel in a way that it's going to address the parking issue. Are you guys, is there any type of works? I know most of the parking development projects you guys are talking about is more towards the beach, heading west. Is there not any type of projects in the works to make more parking towards this area, towards the Normandy Isle area per se? And another thing is, what is the cost what's the associated cost with these residential parking permits for the ones that, live here, not the visitors? I know the visitors, you guys said it was $3, but what
Yeah.
about the residents?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Jacqueline. So you're correct. In respect to the parking garages, right now slated going into construction is the 72nd Street project that Jose just gave an update on. That it's in design. So that's the one that's gonna probably safe to say come online probably the soonest. But west of that, there are no plans at this time for a future garage in that area. In respect to cost, the first year is free for the pilot program. Then after that, once the pilot program's over, that's when the city commission will determine what the final cost may be. But for an example, Flamingo Park,
As an example, the permit for Flamingo Park costs $56 and change a year. So that comes out to just a few pennies a day, really.
okay, so we're gonna come back in person. If you wanna come up, and then we'll take this lady here. And again, if anyone has any, if you guys
En
just want to
español voy a hablar.
Okay, perfect.
Mi nombre es
Gracias.
Rafael de Lance, vivo 24 años y unos meses ahí en la Marcel Drive, 1188 Marcel Drive. Cuando yo me mudé ahí, no estaban todos esos árboles. Siempre llegué a tener 4 vehículos y no había problema. Pero ahora yo me pregunto, si una persona tiene más de un vehículo en un apartamento, ¿va a hacer una conciliación ustedes de eso? ¿O le van a permitir también adquirir el sello para parquear? Esa es la primera.
Sí, muy buena pregunta. Lo que estamos considerando es dos permisos por vivienda, y entonces consideramos si hay un caso que necesite más de 2, eso lo tomamos en consideración, ¿no? Tiene que tener, para tener un permiso, tiene que tener un vehículo que va a ir con ese permiso, porque
Sí.
el permiso está basado en la chapa.
Sí, sí.
¿Usted cuántos vehículos tiene?
No, solo tengo uno, pero
Ok.
mi nieto, mi hijo, hay un nieto que vive conmigo. Entonces eso era una de las cosas. Otra cosa, no me opongo nunca a esto que estoy diciendo, solamente estoy esclareciendo. Yo noto que yo trabajé hasta el año pasado porque me dio cáncer y lo superé gracias a Dios. Entonces yo siempre, cuando llegaba medio después de las 5, nunca había un parqueo. Pero también he notado que mucha gente van y parquean vehículos que no son de ahí, y cuando andan en otro vehículo y cuando vienen se proveen lo necesario de ese vehículo que tienen, o si no cambian ese por el otro y se van. Si esa persona no vive cerca de aquí, ustedes van a tomar en consideración eso de que no puede parquear ahí, en la zona que le toque a uno.
Bueno, lo que estamos considerando es una zona para North Beach entero. Al tener una zona, y si usted tiene un permiso, dentro de esa zona se puede parquear donde quiera.
Sí, sí.
Con lo bueno del programa piloto es que limita la cantidad de permisos, porque en estos momentos no hay control
Espacio.
sobre eso, entonces no hay espacios. Al limitar un poco la cantidad de permisos, pues entonces esas violaciones, por ejemplo, se pueden eliminar y son más fácil de
regular.
De regular. Sí.
Otra, donde yo vivo hay un colegio que yo permití porque tuvimos que, todos los habitantes del condominio, tuvimos que firmar, algunos se negaban. Y como eran de personas que yo sé que valen la pena, judíos, no tengo nada contra los judíos, de hecho, son personas que la Biblia lo menciona. Y Dios, según la Biblia, dice que a ese pueblo le tendría consideración. Bueno, ahí hay un colegio aquí y otro me queda en Normandy. Esa gente, por lo regular, tienen empleados y van a parquear ahí. Yo no quisiera que se tomara nada contra ellos, pero si tuvieran un límite de tiempo para... Desde luego ellos trabajan horarios de 8 horas, lo más probable, y se van temprano, porque cuando ellos se van uno haya donde parquear. Pero quería saber también eso.
Sí, pues si es un colegio, ¿no? Un colegio, o es una sinagoga, o es
No,
un
es
templo.
sinagoga, es colegio.
Es colegio, es un colegio.
Son tan buenos que le cobran nada más 1,000 al mes.
Sí. En el caso de los colegios, ¿no? Estamos viendo a ver qué se puede hacer para organizaciones que son not for profit. Por ejemplo, las la sinagoga, los templos y otros establecimientos, incluyendo las escuelas también. Hay un comisionado que está viendo a ver qué consideración se le puede dar a esas organizaciones si están dentro de una zona residencial, ¿no? En estos momentos todavía no tenemos esa
No, pero yo sé
respuesta,
que
¿no?
dentro de su
Pero
cláusula está eso ya.
sí,
Solamente
sí,
no hago
sí.
más
Es
preguntas.
parte
No,
del
me
piloto.
siento muy bien porque causa mucha incertidumbre. Mire, yo tenía 79 años y se mudaron unos rusos ahí, entonces uno muy habilidoso, porque imagínense, muchos años viviendo en, en zonas paupérrimas. Entonces uno aprende a defenderse. Y yo me pegaba con cualquiera, ya no, porque ya estudié incluso la Biblia. Pero mire, véame todos los dedos rotos, yo era peligroso. Y viene ese joven, oigan, y nos pegamos a la trompa. Y cuando el policía vino, yo tenía un hierrito y le caía atrás al muchacho, un hierrito viejo. Y entonces dice que yo hago con ese hierro. Digo, ¿usted cree que es posible que él con 20 años se pegue conmigo, que tengo casi 80? Agárremelo, que se lo voy a matar ahí ahora mismo. Y entonces, él dice, pero usted no respeta. Usted no respeta. Y yo, no, pero es que usted no se da cuenta que este muchacho me tiene harto. Cada vez me hace mover el vehículo, Y viene, y yo me parqueo antes que y vino a quitarme. Se me metió así, en un motor.
Bueno,
Entonces,
si usted
eso
tiene
quita
una
problemas
situación,
también eso de...
si tiene una situación de un carro que usted cree que no esté permitido o correcto para parquear, por favor avísenos. Había un slide donde enseñamos el número de teléfono para contactar a enforcement y ese es el número que hay que llamar.
Sí, porque eso crea mucha confusión y problemas.
Gracias.
Yo sé que eso va a ser beneficioso para todos, porque nos trae paz y tranquilidad. Y es muy
Gracias.
necesario.
Gracias. Thank you. If you could just stay. And before you go, I just want to recognize, thank you, Mayor Minor, for joining us this evening, coming in person. If you could come up, state your full name for us.
Yes, my name is Catherine Cespedes.
Hey, Catherine.
And I moved from the DC area about a year and a half ago.
Welcome.
And thank you. And I am in Normandy Isle,
Okay.
in an area where it's primarily just buildings that do not, so it's apartment buildings that do not offer parking for the residents who live there.
Yeah.
And because of the parking situation that most people have been discussing, earlier this year I had to park my car in the main part of the island, so like 71st. My car got totaled, and I
Wow.
brought it from Maryland just to get destroyed here, just because of the parking situation. So, and I had to pay for the car in full myself out of pocket, because the driver didn't have insurance. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
maybe share a little case study about like how bad
No,
the
thank you.
situation is.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Especially from an out-of-state perspective, I never faced that over there. And here, I haven't even been here that long, and my car got totaled like that. It was parked overnight, because there was no overnight parking when I came back from work.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that happened. But
So that was one thing, and the other, I was just curious to know what was being done for the residents there.
What was that last- what?
It's 60 South Shore Drive.
what was your question? What's being done?
What is being done?
Oh,
about
okay.
the
So that's
parking
part of the
situation?
pilot
Yeah.
program. So
Yeah.
that's part. You came a little late. So
Yeah.
what we're doing is, and what we could do is we have a website online that we have all the presentations, so you could download them and if you want to read them. But basically, what we are proposing is we're going to have one big zone for all of North Beach that includes your area, this area, Town Center, which is south of us, and Biscayne Beach. So that way, you'll have an opportunity to register. It's going to be 2 permits per household, up to 2 per household. So that way, people could register. And then once those permits are in place, hopefully the non-residents that are storing vehicles in the area will start to free up some parking in the area. So, at night you're not going to have to go looking for parking away from where you live. That's the intent. We also covered new development that you see going up around here. That is not going to be included. So that won't be included in the program. And hopefully some of the new developments don't offer parking for all of their units. So hopefully through this program, they're not going to be incentivized to do that anymore. And so those are some of the highlights, really. You'll have visitor passes. So that's originally there was going to be a charge, now they're going to be free. But again, and it's just one big zone versus individual zones. So that's like the 30-second overview of the program. But this is our fourth meeting. We'll make sure to, if you go miamibeachfl.gov and just look up residential parking, you'll see our website. We have all the meetings there. Then next Wednesday is the actual commission vote where the mayor and city commission will consider this. You could call into that meeting if you want to provide comment for their consideration. And then that's kind of where we're at. Hope that helps.
Excellent, yeah, no, it does.
Thank you.
Especially as a parent, because
Yeah,
always
of
traveling
course.
with your child and then walking for blocks.
Yeah. No, thank you for coming out. No, you're good. Anybody else in person? You want to come on up? I'm going to take somebody on Zoom because I did 2 in person, 1 on Zoom. Vamos a hacer uno en Zoom. Okay, pero I'm going to go back to screen name is Fern. See if we could hear you now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, there we go.
Okay, so I live over on Rue Notre Dame in Normandy, and there's a temple over here, and a lot of their services are at night. So how is that going to work?
Thanks so much for that question. So with houses of worship, there was a slide in respect to a house of worship permit. So what we're looking to do is to work with house of worships and their members to ensure that if there are any members that do not live in the community and do need to drive into the area, and they don't have residential permits, there'll be a special permit that the house of worship could acquire. We're meeting with one temple right now coming up. So we'll make sure to do outreach to each of them so they know this service is available. So to answer your question, there's going to be a special permit for them so they could so they could be in the zone when it's time or if they need to do any service at the house of worship. Now I'm going to go back in person. We're going to do 2 in person, then back to Zoom. ¿En español? Yeah. ¿Cómo está?
Mi nombre es Miriam Vargas. Primero que todo, yo no veo aquí a ninguno de mis vecinos. Se quejan, hablan de los parqueos. Yo tengo 76 años. Yo manejo, trabajo de aquí a Hollywood todos los días. Cuando yo regreso a mi casa a las 5:30 y 6, yo no encuentro un solo parqueo. Yo vivo al lado del Montessori. Toda esa vía de ahí por acá, ahí no hay un parqueo a ninguna hora. Bueno, hay parqueos estacionados, carros de 15 días, 2 meses, 3 meses, 5 meses, 6 meses. Yo tengo 2 carros, el de mi hija y el mío. Yo lo parqué 2 cuadras más adelante. 3 días me pusieron una llamada de atención que tenía que mover el carro. Los que están ahí, que duran 2 meses, 3 meses, nunca le ponen una llamada de atención. Otra cosa, la mayoría de los parqueos, yo cuando salgo en la mañana se llenan de puras personas que trabajan por ahí. Cuando yo llego hay una chica que se va a ir. ¿Te puedo esperar? No, porque yo voy a hablar por teléfono ahora. No salgo sino en media hora. Entonces, yo lo que pido es que nos ayuden a los carros que están mucho tiempo parqueados, que no se saben de quién son, están con las llantas espichadas, con los vidrios rotos. Entonces, el del parking le pone llamada de atención al carro de uno, pero a ellos no les ponen atención. ¿Me entiende toda esa situación que hay?
Sí, el programa piloto va a ayudar a los enforcement, va a ayudar al enforcement poder citar a esos carros. En estos momentos no se sabe esos carros si son de residentes, si no son de residentes. Al tener un programa donde los residentes se registran, ya entonces se sabe si esos carros pertenecen a residentes o no residentes y se puede llamar al residente y decirle usted tiene que mover el carro. También hay un número donde puede llamar, porque muchos la mayoría de La mayoría del enforcement, no sé decir, perdona, enforcement en español. La mayoría de las aplicaciones que se hacen es basado en llamadas de complaints. Pero al ya tener el piloto, el programa piloto, ya uno se registra y sabe quién está registrado y quién no. Tal vez Alberto tenga más información que pueda
Hay
dar.
hay muchos parqueos también que hay edificios de 12 unidades y eso, que ellos tienen su parqueo. Entonces, el parqueo de ellos lo rentan y entonces nos cogen del lado donde estamos nosotros. Y cada día estamos peor. Yo he entrado a mi casa a veces a las 8 de la noche, 9 de la noche, y tengo que madrugar a las 5 de la mañana para irme a trabajar.
Este programa va a ayudar porque cuando uno se registra, como usted dice, si hay un vehículo que está abandonado, nosotros vamos a ir y si ellos no están registrados, entonces nosotros podemos hacer algo contra ese vehículo porque sabemos de que no está registrado y de que no es de alguien de que vive en esa zona.
Es verdad. Bueno, gracias.
Gracias. I think we had somebody else in person. Oh, yeah, come on up. Oh, sorry.
My name is Antonio de Leon, and I also live in Normandial. And in Normandial, like she mentioned before, there are cars that are parked like 4 or 5 months. But it's
Yeah.
not only that, there are cars that have license registration that are expired for months. When I walk my dog, I found in one block 3 cars with expired license plates. So how can those cars be parked there for months for you? You know, I work, now I'm retired, but when I was working, I got home at 10 o'clock at night, and at 10, there was no parking space, and all these cars are there like nothing. There are also parking space, there are several points in there. So the cars that are left for months in there, the cars with expired license plates, and they are motorcycle parking lots. The motorcycle parks that are never, that are never used. There are others that are packed, but there are motorcycles that park in cars parking lots. So it's all messed up and no one takes care of it. No one pay attention to it. No one pass by. I came in a little late, so I don't have the phone number.
Okay, yeah, we'll
enforcement.
go over that.
So I'm gonna need that phone number because
Yeah,
I'm gonna
please.
call and I'm gonna report everything that I see there because it's horrible to live in Normandial.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
about it.
so actually, Albert, so, come on up.
The number is going to be 305-604.
Oh, wait a minute. 305
604 47
604
47
47
85.
85.
And that number is for both the parking department as well if you have a code enforcement issue, the dispatcher dispatches both.
Okay.
305-604-4785.
Okay. Thank you very much.
If you don't mind, let me follow up on that comment. When I was knocking, I heard numerous complaints about people leaving their scooters for people to come and park or reserving a spot. One of the good things about the pilot program and a residential parking permit in general is that you can have a defined section for scooters and motorcycles where they're not going to be able to park in a car space. So they're not going to be able to reserve their spots for their friends or their family or anyone else. And so that's one of the other benefits of having sort of law and order on street parking.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we have, yeah, come on up. Oh, hold on, right behind you. Okay.
Yeah, because there's so many issues in that island. In Cali Drive,
Yeah,
I don't know what happened with some buildings in there behind the park.
yeah,
2 blocks from the park in Cali Avenue. Cali Drive, whatever. Drive.
yeah.
They are neighbors that I believe that they are expelled out of their apartments. And all the furniture are thrown out in the parking lots on the street. 3 parking lots for 2 weeks. So
Well,
what's going on? Does the city
yeah.
look after that? Does police and law enforcement
Yeah, so
pass
that could
by?
be-
What
that could
happened
be-
in there? This is happening in Cali Drive every 2 or 3 months.
Interesting.
3 parking lots occupied for 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, so that's definitely an issue because that adds to the reason why there's no parking for the residents. So what we'll do is we're going to share that with code so code could go by, and that's really illegal dumping. So that building could receive a violation. What now with that new number that you just got, that's the code compliance dispatch. So if you ever want to call and you see it, we will make sure, now that you reported this to us, we'll share with code so code could maybe take a look. If it's out there today, I'm sure tomorrow it will be addressed. But if it does appear and code doesn't get to it in time, you could always call us and let us know. But we'll make sure code knows so they could go by. Maybe if you're telling us it's every 2 weeks, maybe near the first of the month or so, they do a trip because maybe that's what's happening.
I'm gonna be reporting.
I can't wait.
Thank
Thank you. All right, now you. And we're gonna do one more in person, and then I see somebody with their hand up on Zoom. Again, if you don't have your hand up on Zoom, we will not recognize you, so please raise your hand on Zoom. And then I think this may be our last person in person. Usually when I say that, more hands go up. If you could state your name for us.
My name is Isis. I was wondering, you were saying that there's going to be 2 permits per household?
Yes.
So does it matter?
Up to.
So does it up to 2 permits? Does it matter if it's a 1-bedroom unit as opposed to a 3-bedroom unit? Because in a 1-bedroom unit, you most likely will have 1 person or a couple. In a 2 or 3-bedroom unit, you'll have a couple and a teenager or another person.
Yeah.
In a 3-bedroom unit, you'll have most likely 3 vehicles. So if they're going to dedicate a person to oversee these permits on a 1-by-1 basis on the huge amount of people, it's going to take forever for your department to oversee on a case-by-case basis this amount of permits.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, and I appreciate it. And so what we're trying to do in coordination with the sponsor, Commissioner Suarez, is we're trying to standardize this as much as possible and take away, not have any subjectivity, if you will. So for now, the way that it's proposed, or what is being proposed, is up to 2 permits, but with any additional permits per household at the discretion of the parking department. And the way it works is it's not by bedrooms, it's by vehicles, because the permit will be associated with your vehicle tag. So if you've got a 2-bedroom and you've got 1 vehicle, or you've got 2 vehicles, then if you've got 2 vehicles, it would be 2 permits.
But it seems unfair because if you have a 1-bedroom unit where it's a couple, now they're going to get 2 permits. And then you have a 3-bedroom unit where the likelihood of having 4 cars, for example, is highly likely as opposed to having a 3-bedroom unit where there's only going to be 2 cars. So it doesn't seem fair to the larger family units, the amount of permits that are. Right, but let's say you have a 3-bedroom unit and you have 2, for example, I'm a realtor, so I rented to a lady, there's 3 cars, her 2 daughters and her, they're at school, at the university, and her. So for her, it would be very difficult because she would only have 2 on a case-by-case basis. But there's going to be so many cases that it's going to be difficult. It's a very vast amount of people that live in this area. So the amount of time that it's going to take for the department to go on a case-by-case basis is going to be insane. Right, but the other parking zones have hotels, have restaurants, have so many other. For example, I live in the area in the island between Crespi and Hawthorne. Nobody goes there. I understand in the areas that are close to Collins or close to commercial areas, but in the areas that are 100% residential, like where I live and where most of my tenants are, there is no one there that is going to be there after 6 p.m. Nobody that doesn't live there is going to be there after 6 p.m. But if they're abusing the system, it's a very small minority. Such a small percentage that if the system is being abused, there's such a vast amount of people are abusing it, then there will be cars towed everywhere. It would be like New York City where people are double parked. You would, because the residents would be calling and saying, tow this car because I can't go past the street. They would say the amount of tows that you guys would have and the amount of complaints would be noticeable. The lack of parking, but so if generally everybody's complaining about the lack of parking, why not make more parking? This is not increasing the amount of parking spaces. This is just regulating the amount of spaces. So if you, so.
And sure, there's obviously that, but at the end of the day, you're still gonna have a finite number of spaces, right? And so right now, the last parking garage that was built cost $40,000 is gonna be, $70 million. Okay, and that's, by the way, that's only 500 spaces on a lot that has 315 spaces. So you're only gaining 185 spaces.
Why not plan this better? When they built the parking garage on 81st Street, they could have built a multi-level parking spot. That certainly took long enough. The city took an inordinate amount of years to build that garage. They built, it was empty with grass everywhere for years. They built it, they made like 25, 26 garages. And now, on top of it all, within the last few months, they put 2 spaces dedicated to charge station cars. To charge station, excuse me, to charge stations car. What is the percentage of people in that island that has chargeable cars? In order to make, so I come home and I cannot park in that space because it's dedicated to the only 2 cars that are always there who have a car that needs a charge station. If you have a car that needs a charge station, you most likely live in a house, because hardly anyone would buy a car, a Tesla or Rividia or whatever it's called, that does not have a parking garage, that does not have a parking space, because who does that? How am I gonna get to work? If I can't charge it, I'm gonna go to Target or Costco?
One thing I've realized in the limited time of government and being here is that things really go at snail's pace. You know, for example, the West Avenue project that has serious problems with flooding is taking 10 years, and it's not even finished. If you look at South of Fifth, that's taken almost 7 years. You know, the 72nd garage, we're nearing also a decade. You know, and let me finish this. Things take time, and unfortunately, you know, every decade that goes by, technology changes. But one thing is for sure, there is an abuse of parking. And I understand, you know, from the perspective of a realtor, where it's in your best interest to have free parking for everyone. My interest is for the residents who live in a neighborhood who can't find parking. I want them to be able to go home in front of their home and park. I don't want them to have to go 3, 4 blocks down the road. And sure, there's going to be circumstances where there's 3 or 4 cars to a big family. That's up to the discretion of the parking authority. But at the end of the day, we want what's fair for the majority of people. And I think two parking permits per household is the most fair thing to do, because at what point do you draw the line? What is to say that if there's a situation where there's 8 people living, is it fair to say they're allowed to have 8 parking permits? No, I don't think so. That's my opinion, and that's my position on it. I think most people have 2 cars, and if there's a situation where there's someone with an extra car, or even possibly 2, because they have 2 teenagers that drive, you know, we're a very accommodating city. We bend over backwards to help the residents. So, and that's what we're gonna do. I'd be more than happy to help any situation where you're at, or your tenants, because I want this to work. The intent of this is to really push out the bad actors who really abuse the system. Because I'm telling you right now, in the next 10 years, you're not gonna have any parking. North Bay Village is building tens of thousands of units. That's just over the bridge.
Okay,
They're
so
gonna
then,
come here, they're gonna park to go to the beach, they're gonna park to go to restaurants, they're gonna park their 2nd or 3rd cars because they know they've been abused.
I guarantee you that nobody.
So we could just
I've
make
lived-
one
I
last
lived-
point, because we still have some
I
people
lived in
online.
this area since I was 16 years old. I've managed up to 40 units at a time. Parking became an issue when the beautification project was planned. The minute the beautification project where they took away over 100 spots because they wanted trees instead, which by the way, I love trees, but the trees that they planted in this beautification project died 10, 20 at a time, because the company that the city hired never watered the trees.
So what wasn't discussed on the slide?
No.
And give me just a
Yeah.
because I know there's other callers, is that I'm also co-sponsoring an item with Commissioner Bott where the city is actually exploring removing those beautification or the bulb outs.
That was-
Or for example, trees that have died, and we're going to be putting in parking. You know, another thing that I just recently spoke with the director, on 72nd Street or 73rd Street, you have a wide street that's only parallel parking. You can make that angle parking, and we can automatically create 100 spaces extra out of nowhere.
Did you know?
Make that an issue. So
when-
just hold on, just to finish. We are working above and beyond
When the beautification project was planned, I met with many, many people from the city. They wanted to do, on the street, they wanted to do, take away, like they did in South Beach. They wanted to take away all the parking on the left side and only leave parking on the right side of the street. The parking was 45-degree angle. They wanted to make it 90-degree angle, right? And take away all this parking. Where were they gonna put all these cars? So this is what they planned for, and this is how they build the curves. They build the curves at 90 degrees on every single street. But of course they couldn't. So they went ahead and there was no communication between who was putting in the cement to build the curve and somehow who ordered it. Because the curves were built at 90-degree angles, but the cars, because they couldn't do away with all the parking on the left side, the cars still had to be at 45. So in this triangle right here, it's just stayed empty. So the cars had to stay at 45 degrees. They were never able to do what they did in South Beach and take
So
it away.
we're going to be here. We're going to stay. We could continue this debate. A lot of people on Zoom can't hear us, so I'm going to go take some callers on Zoom. Again, we're going to be here, so at the end we could continue to talk.
One other question, for
But-
example, one other question, for
Okay,
example.
we're a
if-
bit
if-
over.
For example, let's say for the visitors, there's a lot of elderly people in these areas who have home health aides and things of that nature who come and stay overnight. They themselves don't have cars, so they would get 2 cars, but they don't have any cars. So these home health aides or a family member that comes overnight or comes and stays
Yeah.
with them, would they be able to get a parking
There's-
permit for this family member who stays overnight?
There's
Or is
actually,
it just visitor?
well, there's multiple ways. So first, you have the visitor pass that could be, but there's another item on this agenda as well in respect to caregivers. So caregivers for elderly residents that need caregivers, the commission's going to consider a special permit for them, so that way they could register through this new permit and they'll be able to park. So.
And another thing, why is this
Sorry,
whole, wait, one question. Why
I-
is this
I'm gonna
whole,
be here
why
at
is
the
this
end.
whole agenda not being put through a vote and instead just doing it?
So I'll answer that with this slide. This is the public hearing where they're going to discuss it. So that's something that comes from the city commission. So if there is an opportunity, that's where this would be heard. So I need to take some people on Zoom. Thank you. Fanny, if you could say your full name for us.
Yes, hi, good afternoon.
Hey.
Fanny Flores, thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank the commissioners for taking on this initiative. I've been here for almost 15 years, and this is the first time that I hear that somebody's trying to do something about, our struggle. My questions, one, I wanted to clarify, because I think I heard you say that the meter parking, right? After 6 o'clock, it's gonna be only available to those who have the permit?
No. So meter, and do you have a second question? But we'll go through that now.
My second question is about visitors. So I'm assuming that if somebody's visiting you, you get a daily permit, but if the person stays here for 3-4 days, that daily permit can be renewed. And
Yep.
then my third,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. We're going to answer all of them again, but what's
Okay.
your third one?
yeah, my third one is, I'm very close to the Montessori school. And we've had issues with that school. I don't know how these things work, if they're able to buy or rent parking. I was told one day, because I parked there, and I guess I didn't move it fast enough in the morning, that when I went to work, and I usually leave at 7:20, it was towed. So I had not noticed that there was a sign there saying that between 7 and I can't remember the time,
Yeah.
the end time, you couldn't park there. And I think it's because the school had worked out something for, I don't know, I guess their staff or whoever. But with this thing in place, would that still be an option for the school if they're, want to reserve some parking spaces for their staff?
Thank you so much. So for your first question, in respect to the meters, after 6 p.m., no, you're not going to require the permit. If you could just clarify that.
So the meters would continue to work as they are today, where at 6 p.m. they would be free of charge and available to either residents that have a permit or to the general, public as well.
And then the second one about visitor permits.
And Yes, visitor permits can be extended. They're valid for a 24-hour period, so they can be extended for however long they need, you need them to be.
As for the Montessori school, if you look at it now, in the past, they used to have more spaces, and the reason was some of those spaces were used for drop-off and delivery, but once the school did a drop-off aisle that goes through the middle of their school, we took some of those spaces back, but they still use some of those spaces for their staff. And they will continue to use it during the program.
I'm gonna take two virtually. Raise your hand if you're planning on speaking in person, just so we have an idea. Okay. All right. So then we're gonna focus virtually, and we're gonna try to get to 7:45 as a hard stop. Again, we're gonna stay here in the room. We're not gonna run out. So I believe it's Kelly. If you could say your full name for us.
Haley. Yes, my name is Kaylee Chacon. I live on 69 on Indian Creek, 6915 Indian Creek. I've been living in this area probably like 7 years, never had any issues with parking until after the construction started. Now with the construction, you can only park on Byron, Carlisle, or Indian Creek, and the post office employees, they don't have any parking, so now they have to park on the same spot, and also the workers at the building. And if you walk around the street now, there's mostly pickup trucks. And I just spent my plan was to go there, but I just spent 40 minutes going around trying to find parking. I'm on a waiting list on the parking lot for Prima Pasta and on the parking lot behind the movie theater. They didn't have anything available. So my question is, I couldn't hear the beginning of the meeting. So is the plan to open more spots? Are you going to make all these area resident parking only? I work from home, so I cannot really go move the car and then come back after 6 p.m. to park the car near the house. So what's going to be the solution for the people that live in this area, and how can I avoid? I keep getting tickets because I work from home. So if I park the car in pay parking, sometimes that expire, and if I don't pay it right, the other day between the time that I walked to my house from the parking, I got a ticket. So it's just it's been a headache this past year. I think year and a half since the construction started. How is that going to be fixed?
Thank you so much. So like you stated, there are some things we already went over, but what I'll do is I'm gonna pull up my email so you have it, and you could email me directly or Gabby, and I'll just do another quick 20-second update. So really, the purpose of this program, and there's my email on the screen. If you go ahead and email me, make sure you get our project webpage. This is being recorded. The presentation will be on the webpage. So ultimately, what we're doing is we're creating a residential zone permit system for North Beach. It's going to be one massive zone for all of North Beach: Normandy Isle, Town Center, North Beach, and Biscayne Beach. That's all going to be in one drawn-out map. And then residents that live in the area, households, have the opportunity up to 2 permits per household. So then that way residents will be able to park on street. So that's kind of in a nutshell, really what we're doing. New developments are going to be excluded from the program. And the intent of this program is to really create more parking for residents by having the non-residents that are parking in the area, Airbnbs that are taking up spaces, Turo, which is a car rental app, that are taking up spaces. Hopefully those will get weeded out and there'll be more residential parking. So that's the intent. But again, email me so I could get you a copy of the recording and the presentation, and you could go through it yourself. Next week, Wednesday, is the public hearing where the commission's going to take a vote to do this. So that's just a quick overview. Nick, screen name, if you could say your full name for us.
Nicholas, I'm a resident within the town center, a new resident or newish resident. My question is, and I paid attention, so I don't think this is actually an issue, but there will be no reciprocity between zones across Miami Beach, correct? As far as this pilot program.
That's correct. There's no crossover between South and North Beach. North Beach is its own zone. South Beach has its own different zones of different shapes and sizes. South Beach, they actually can't go into different zones. So that's correct.
I have one more additional question.
Yeah.
If my understanding is correct, I know folks, more of a comment, folks were pointing out that condos with private parking shouldn't necessarily have an additional space, but if my understanding is correct, single-family homes within these applicable zones would also have access to, presuming they have parking, would also have access to this permit and could park within areas in the zone, allowing them additional spaces. Is that correct as well?
Yep, that is correct as well. Single family homes will have the opportunity to participate in the program if they are located within the zone that was on the map earlier. Again, if
Right.
you on our website, you could download the presentation. Thank you. Now we do have one more that came in person. I'm going to go to Beatrice. If you could say your full name for us.
Beatrice Herman. I live a block away from here, and I think you have a very good idea of what you're going to do. I'm all for it. My question is, we live in the North Miami. Where do we are going to go to get the permit? All the way downtown?
No. So we live in North Miami Beach. So
Yes.
there's going to be different opportunities. And there was a slide, the North Beach field office by the fountain. Well, by the fountain, we
Yes.
have a building department
yes, yes.
substation field office. So we're going to have an opportunity for residents to go there and provide the documents. And then you can come to City Hall, not downtown, but you go South Beach. But that office right here, which is a few blocks
Yes.
west of us at 962 Normandy Drive. You'll
the
be able
fountain.
to go there and
The
provide in
office
the
in the
fountain.
fountain.
Yeah, by
That's
appointment. We'll ask you to make an appointment. You
Okay.
could. I think you know who to call. So
The other question I have is, on South Shore Drive is going to also be in the program, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be included.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, Annette, if you could say your full name for us.
Yes, it's Annette Rodriguez.
Hey, Annette.
Hey, so I had well, first of all, good afternoon. Second of all, I had a question. I live in Normandy Drive. Well, not Normandy Drive, in Marcel, right behind Normandy Drive, and my girlfriend also resides with me. However, she in her ID, she uses her mom's, which is outside of North Beach. However, her car does park here. Would I be able to register her vehicle here, or how would that work?
Yeah, so that's going to be a special case because it's going to have to be a Miami Beach address. So I think what you could do is maybe email us so we could look for, we could try to work with you in some way. So that way, we don't make it too hard on you and your girlfriend.
All right, perfect. And I just had one other question.
Yeah.
Because I've been living here for roughly 14, 15 years. And, a lot of times cars break. In the event that your car does break and it sits in the same spot for, I don't know, wait 2 weeks, would that need to be notified? Would you have a way to notify?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And again, we have this program in different parts of the city, like in South Beach. So there is a mechanism where you could notify the parking department. Again, ultimately going, to your first question and to this question, we're looking to ensure that there's no really waste and abuse of the parking stock that we have since it's so limited. So of course, our cars break down all the time. We're not looking to make it a hardship on you. Your car breaks and by the way, we're going to tow it. So there's an opportunity where there's a 2-week grace period where you notify the city. And again, I think communication goes a long way. If you're making an effort and you're in constant communication with us, there's a 2-week grace period. And again, I think we're willing to work with people to not make this a hardship. They would be towed?
Yes.
Okay, and so Commissioner Suarez brought up a great point. Right now, there is no system, so you would be towed if there's a car that's broken down and somebody makes a complaint. You can actually just get towed because there's no system in place. Like I referenced, South Beach has this system, and this is where the 2-week grace period comes from. So right now in North Beach, if your car does break down, there's no opportunity. You're gonna probably have to tow it away to another area and work on those repairs. Versus once this program in place, it's another added benefit. I'm gonna look around the room. Anybody here? No? All right, and then last up, last person with their hand up. I usually say that, we get 5 more. I'm gonna go back to Fanny. I think you spoke already, but I'm gonna give you just one more shot, just in case we miss some. Oh, you put your hand down. All right, thanks, Fanny. All right, so on the screen, we have, again, the public hearing is going to be on Wednesday, July 24th. Time certain means it's not necessarily it's going to be heard at 2:30, but it can't be heard before 2:30. So at 2:30 is when you could start tuning in, and then you have the 4 different items. Those are when the items will be called up, and you could call in and participate. If you go to miamibeachfl.gov, there's a Zoom link. It's on this presentation. This will go on the project webpage, and then again, I'll pull up my email. If you email Gabby or I here, or if you scan the QR code, if you scan it, you're going to get email updates. Email us. We'll answer any questions you have. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.